You want to talk about your first ship you were on?
Well, I went with what's his name, Jason Porter, and me and my dad got a job. And I know it was a Patterson boat, but I can't think it was a Caneller.
Yeah.
But I was only on it 2 days when the union put me off. And by geez, at that age I wasn't very old. I hardly knew south from north, and I had to hitchhike from Cardinal to the Union Hall in Thorold. By geez, that was a long haul. I didn't even really know the road. I was so damn glad to get to Thorold, and went down there like it chipped out, and that's when I went on the Sir Thomas Shaughnessy. And a guy, he brought us up there, he lived around there, somewhere in Windy City or something near Welland there. And he had an old 56 Buick, and that's what we come up down Sound in. And went out on it, and that's when really my first job, and that's when the chief didn't want to take me because of my aunt. And this Ivor McIver, I'm sure was his name, from Bruce Peninsula. He was second engineer on it, and he said he farmed up on the Bruce there somewhere. And he said, if this boy is a farmer and he can't steam your job, he said nobody can. So he gave me the job. But, yeah, so, and that's the picture of the Sir Thomas Shaughnessy there.
So what made you want to go sailing?
Oh, my dad sailed and my brother sailed, and there were quite a few at the Deakins sailed, yeah, so. Yeah, that was that one, I guess, why what your dad do, you want to do too most of the time. So that's how come. But me and Charlie's the only one of my dad that sailed. Dad sailed, I remember my dad sailed the first time. Oh God, I would think it maybe before the 50s. He went with, Uncle Art was on the, it was a Lemoyne. It was one of the bigger jobbies anyhow, and he went with it, but Dad didn't sail very long that time, but he sailed off and on for about 20 years, I guess. And I sailed with him too on, when was it? I can't, but I know I sailed with Dad for a little while. I think he was just on the layup with us in Port Colborne. They need extra men to do the boilers and everything, so because I think we only had 3 firemen, and that wasn't enough for to lay up the boilers and all that, so they hired my dad and a couple other guys just to help lay it up for the winter.
So you were a fireman, was your first job?
Yeah,
shoveling coal,
and then an oiler, and then an engineer.
What was firing like back then?
Well, the first job at Sir Thomas Shaughnessy, it was pretty, that's the one that burned 30 ton of coal a day, and 6 men had to shovel all that coal, plus about a good ton of slack and ashes too, and it all just went out over the side of that time, and it's a little bit different today than things, but it was a good job, and I was on it a couple of years, I think, and then I don't know what went on after that, but there was a few. I was on the Howard L. Shaw, and I was on the Grovedale and the Parkdale, and I was on one Meisner boat. I think it was a Bennett. I'd have to look at my discharge book, but it was. It had 3 boilers, 9 fires. Just one man looking after 9 fires, and it was an automatic stoker, but it wasn't a very good automatic stoker. It was a ramp stoker. And it just kept shoving the coal in all in one spot. As I always said, it looked like a pregnant woman, everything in the center and nothing at either end. So you had to take your rake and level off to get enough steam to come up. And I think we had to pull 5 fires on a 4-hour shift too.
So when you say it was an automatic thing, was like a trough running into the boiler?
Yeah, and it's their big ramp just kept shoving her in through under the grates and up through the grates.
Okay, yeah.
But it wasn't much of a. If you had bad coal, it was tremendous because it used to. Once it got slag on it, it wouldn't go up where it was supposed to. It was quite a job. And a lot of times, too, on that one, when you were in port, with the 3 burner fires, you couldn't let one boiler down. It used to come back through the stoker and go on fire on you. You'd have to put water in there because you wasn't using enough coal to get enough steam, so it just would get so hot it would come back up the stoker on that. And I think it was the Bennett that had the three boilers. That's the only one I ever sailed on. It had 3 boilers.
And what was your first oiling job?
The Grovedale or the Parkdale.
How'd you like that? Was it better money?
Yeah, that was when well, that's just after I was on the Shaw, when the guy in the Shaw wouldn't give me the oiling job because he said he didn't think I could handle it with my hand. I'd get caught in the engine. And then they go, well, there were kind of dangers out in the storm, them triple expansion engines. You had to go right in between there and feel them bearings and see whether you had to put an extra squirt of oil in or make sure they didn't heat up. So that's when the Grovedale, I went on firing first, and then it wasn't very long till he wanted me to go oil this engineer. I can't think of his name. I used to remember it for a long time, but I think he come from Honey Harbor. But that chief looked at that crew looked after both the Grovedale and Parkdale at that time. We used to run from the Lakehead to Toronto, and we'd leave one full boat there in Toronto, and the crew would go on the other one and bring her up and bring her back, and then we'd just change the boat.
Okay, yeah.
And that was quite a disaster in that Grovedale too. I am telling you, I never had a hotter day in my life. I don't know, the firemen, they never took the ash pits out of the ashes out of the ash pit, and it did, and then it burnt out the grates on it, or bars, and we had to crawl in there. It was a Grovedale when it was on, and you only had one boiler, and everything ran on steam. Your refrigeration, dynamos, everything was on steam. So you couldn't put the steam out, and we had to go in there in one fire at a time with just one big boiler, pull the fire and keep the other fires going for steam. And we wet down a plank, and we had to go in there with a sledgehammer and a big chisel and break these bars up inside there to get them pulled out through the ash pit. It was a job and a half, and you could only stay in there maybe a couple of minutes at the most, and they'd have to pull you out, and they'd wet her down again, and it must have took us 3 hours to change all them grate bars. And I never had such a hot job in all my life. Yeah.
What about your first engine job? Diesel.
Diesel
Or
job.
First diesel job.
It was on the East Cliff Hall.
Okay.
You remember the East Cliff Hall?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah.
But it sank down in the other side of Quebec City. I wasn't on it then, but there was 7 drowned in that boat at that time. And it just because the captain, he never notified anybody who was aground. He just put her in reverse and backed her up. And there was 7 of them drowned right in the river, which should have never happened. And the first mate lost his license over that too, because they said that when the captain was that drunk that he should have took over. But that's pretty hard to tell a captain, you go to bed, I'm going to look after it. I don't know who would ever do it anyhow. But
what kind of diesel did she have?
that one I can't remember what diesel I went on in. But it was I don't know where it was. I know Elizabeth Hine had, I can't tell you what it even had in it either for the name of the engine, but I know the Sir Thomas, the George, George Hyman, the George.
Fort William.
Yeah. Fort
William.
Yeah, Fort William. It had a Fairbanks and Morris engines, I think, and there was 4 of them. Yeah, 72 pistons. But I think the other one on East Cliff Hall only had about 5 or 6 cylinders. But it was a pretty slow diesel engine. Didn't rev up like that one or the one that the Hyman either. It was I think it was a German engine that was on that. I think, but it ran fairly slow. I think just about 400 revs or something. It wasn't.
Was it MAN maybe?
I don't know, but I don't think it was an opposed piston engine either. But
Okay.
it did. I know both George there and what's the other one? I had the opposed piston engine. It was two. It must have been that other one. I was that I was on. I had the opposed piston engine. And I know it was because we had to put new liners in it down in Hamilton Harbor that winter, and that was quite a job taking out them there liners. You had to take your top crank out and your liners out and all the pistons out. It was quite a job to put a new liner in one of them engines.